One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Email marketing is one of those topics that I know this community loves so much. And the reason why you love it whenever I have a copywriter or an email expert or somebody that's helping you get a handle on this is probably because, one, you have no idea how it works and you feel kind of dumb and you're like, can you please just explain it to me like I'm 5, right? Have you seen that episode of The Office? Because this is how I felt for a long time. Like somebody comes in, they're talking about, on the specific episode of The Office, they're talking about the, oh my gosh, now I'm totally blanking. What is it called? The surplus. That's what it was. I was thinking budget. I'm like, they're not talking about the budget. They're talking about a surplus. And Oscar, he's the accountant. He comes in, he talks about the surplus and everything. And Michael Scott, who is Steve Carell's character, is like, can you explain this to me like I'm, 10 or whatever? And then he's like, can you explain it to me like I'm 5 after Oscar gives him the explanation? And I feel like that's how I was forever with email marketing. I just was like, I could not wrap my head, like just the idea of email marketing. Like, what am I supposed to talk about on a regular basis? And how does this all actually work? When do I have time? I had so many questions about email marketing, right? So that's like one camp of people that I know the audience is, because like I said, that's where I was for a very, very long time. And then the second group of people are people that are getting into email marketing. They get it. They understand it. They're trying to get better at it, but they're always looking for, how do I make this easier? Because email marketing is one of those things, like it took me a while. Like I said, it took me a while to figure it out. And then even once I figured it out, I still had so many questions. So that is why I'm so excited to be talking about it again today with a very special guest. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Krystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of podcasting, think of this show as the time-saving shortcut you've been looking for. So let's get right to it, shall we? So I'm just going to jump into the interview with today's guest because it was so, oh my gosh, like so good. I was about to say a really bad word. Then I'm like, no, don't say it. It was so good. And that is Kate Doster. So Kate Doster is the host of the Inbox Besties podcast. Please go listen to her show after this because it's so good. She's also the creator of Love Your List 2.0 email marketing mega course and is dangerously obsessed with helping ethical entrepreneurs carve out their slice of the interwebs. I love that she says this. She says she helps her students woo open the hearts and wallets of their small but mighty audiences thanks to fun email marketing and easy yes mini offers. She believes you don't need to bleed the alphabet or be a dirty, rotten spam face to write emails that jolt subscribers into taking action, gobbling up your paid offers like candy or kale if that's your thing. Yeah, that's just a little taste of Kate's personality, and I cannot wait for you to listen to this interview. So here's my chat with Kate Doster. All right, Profit Podcast listeners, I'm so excited I feel like we've never met before, but I'm already like, we're going to be besties. I love the name of your podcast. I love everything that you're doing in the online space. So welcome to the show, Kate.
Well, I am so excited to be here. And I think this too, because obviously I was listening to your podcast. I'm like, yeah, we're going to be friends. Just knowing that we're friends now.
Yes. Like, oh my gosh, we're just going to have so much fun today. And I normally would start with, hey, tell us about who you are and what you do. But I actually want to start it. Like I asked you before we started recording and I was like, you're dealing with an issue with your podcast like today in real time, even though you will have resolved it and everything will work out beautifully, rainbows and butterflies by the time this airs. But you're having an issue with your podcast today. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Because my listeners love behind the scenes. So they can learn and hopefully, just see what happens behind the scenes for other podcasters. So can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. I have no problem. I'm an open book and I think that everyone should be more transparent about what goes on in their business. So at the start of the month, well, a little bit like say in April when we were recording this, we actually started with a coaching program called Run Like Clockwork. And so with Run Like Clockwork, they sort of have you go through everything that you do in a day, things you can outsource. They also have you have your teammates do it as well. So any like contractors that you have, all this sort of stuff. And they're really, really big on you can teach any skill, but there are certain personality traits that you just cannot fix in people. And so they would much rather say, teach somebody how to play with Audacity rather than just like, somebody who like flakes off on deadlines. So we had a team member that I had known for a while because it was a family member, was overpaid and their quality of work was poor. They were missing deadlines. They had just shown no improvement. And the one thing that we could normally count on them with all the other things that they just didn't do, which was half of their job, that was podcast editing. Like they always made sure that our episode was up on Wednesday. It was fine. And so the episode was already done and edited, or so I thought. And we let the contractor know, which yes, was family, that we weren't going to be renewing them. So I listened to the podcast episode and they added the intro and the outro and they added the ads. They didn't actually edit it, if that makes sense. Like they just went time-wide. So it was an income report and I swore like twice, and I don't want to have like the expletive rating on ours. So, like I literally paused. I said his name and I'm like, edit this out. And so this happened twice because, you get a little lively when you're talking about your personal stuff and things that are going on and you're excited, and they just didn't. And so even though they were on our team with other capacities, we were debating like, oh, they do hit this deadline, but just absolutely not. Like their attention to detail was just awful. Hitting deadlines was just awful. And it's just not traits that our business could carry. So I am going to be back to editing my podcast for a little while until we get a different podcast editor.
Oh
So
my
it was one
gosh.
of those things like, yeah, sure, we could let it slide. But like I said, we swore, so we'd have to expletive it. But like I literally said, like, hey, the person's name, edit this out, let's start again. And this happened 2 separate times in the recording.
Oh no.
So
Oh
it
no.
proves to me like while it wasn't the end of the world, it was the end of like, it was the best decision ever to let this person go.
Yeah.
As much as I love this person as a human and I think that they're amazing and I'm sure family stuff's going to be awkward for a very long time, it was just like, no, like Kate Doster as a company needed to make that cut.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I love the behind the scenes of, there's what you just said about the personality traits. It's like,
Mhm.
like when you find someone that you can work really well with, and then you could teach them like, hey, if I figured this stuff out, I know that I can teach it to someone else, like having that drive. But I'm curious, was the process the same of, do you go back and listen to all of your episodes, even when someone else was editing them? Like, is that just something that you do on a regular basis with your show?
Sometimes I do, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I hadn't quite lately. And for some reason, just this morning, I'm just like, oh, like I'm going to listen to it. It was the first time that we ever did like an income report. And, you always try to get better. And I was just like, so now I'm like, there was probably at least, I want to say 5 months worth of episodes. Like I might have listened to like here and there. And I'm like, do we need to go back and re-listen to all of these to make sure?
Right.
But usually our listeners, and I'm sure the same way with yours too, they're really, really great at like pointing out like mistakes or something was wrong because this isn't the first mistake that has happened.
Yeah.
But it was 100% the last, the last.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like
Wow.
if you are the visionary for your business and you're the CEO, then you don't necessarily have to be detail oriented because the contractors you hire out are supposed to be. And it was a bad fit. It was a bad
Oh my
fit,
gosh.
sadly.
Well,
I really,
I'm
really wanted it to work, but just
I'm
no.
so glad that you shared it because like I said, I think that before we started recording, I was like, everybody's always wants to share the sunshine and rainbows and
No,
doesn't
no.
always want to share like when something goes wrong. And this happens like there's been so many times where I'm like in the middle of like uploading and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I did that because I take it from a raw file and then I export it and I'm like, oh, I uploaded it to my site. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Like, but that's part of your process. Yes. Like, and having done it, I know you have so many podcast episodes at this point. So it's
Mhm.
almost like that muscle memory where you're like, oh yeah, I did that because you've done it so many times.
And
So
we
I
have it
totally,
documented. So we were in Trello.
oh,
We're currently testing up ClickUp. I know. I would much rather be in. You're gonna notice like all my ClickUp is set up just like Trello though. But like so we have like really minute like checkpoints, like upload audio, name, file, do this tag. So
yes.
it's every little thing because I personally love it. Even having ADHD, I love the dopamine hit of hitting off a check mark.
Oh,
So
you're
it's
speaking
just
my
like,
language.
right. And even with those and the deadlines, it didn't work. I think that that's really, really, it's really, really hard for me being an Enneagram 2. If you guys hang out with that crowd at all, and that's more of a people pleaser. So I'm a 2-3, which is really odd for entrepreneurs because usually there's like threes and beyond. And it was just like, yeah, it was the last straw.
Oh my
Like
gosh. Oh my
you're
gosh.
right. So when we are filling that position, we are going to take the adage of hiring very slow and releasing contracts very, very fast if necessary.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. I'm so happy that you can share about your
Yeah.
experience because like I said, there's people that are listening that are like, oh, okay, so I need to make sure that if that's something I'm worried about, then maybe I need to re-listen to it or do this. But also, no, there's going to be things that happen and things
Oh
that
yeah.
pop up. And so Kate and I, we're just listen to us. Please learn from us. That is why we are here today. But we are actually here today to talk about email marketing. This
Mhm.
is like the thing that everybody, I'm sure people listening right now are sweating as soon as I said email marketing because they're like, I don't email my list. I don't do it. I say I'm going to every single week, then it doesn't happen. And I keep pushing it down and it's the last thing on my to-do list. So before we get there, I actually want to know how did you get into email marketing? And this is the focus of your business.
Sure. So I started off online, like a lot of people, as a blogger. And then from hanging out in entrepreneurial groups when it was like super cool in like, 2016, I found out that there's this thing called copywriting with a W. So that's where you got paid to write words to make people to take action. And most people find it really hard to believe, but like I have dyslexia, like I was not strong in English, but I get people. Like my degrees are in communication and psychology. And I just thought this was like fascinating. And especially with a really effective copywriting, you have to write like you talk. And I'm like, that is my wheelhouse. So it started like very organically, like people would post pages, like landing pages and things like that. And they'd be like, oh, what do you guys think? And so I would always leave like these detailed things about why stuff was awful, because it was. And then somebody after that was like, oh, well, like, can you fix it? And so it was that. And then I had found another copywriter, was a junior copywriter, so I could get that confidence muscle. And when you are a copywriter and you work primarily with online business owners, you can write everything from home pages, about pages, long form sales pages, landing pages for like opt-ins and freebies. You can write launch sequences. And I loved landing pages and launch sequences. So that eventually came like an all-around copywriter to like, this is what I did. And then I decided in like 2018, I don't want to write for people anymore. I'm tired of having other bosses. So I switched into digital products and courses.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
Very cool. Very cool. So do you still mostly focus on the same like launching and doing things like that? Or is it all any kind of email marketing? Like tell me more about like what is the most fun? Because this is what's funny, because I think emails are fun. And like most people listening are like, you're insane. What are you talking like this? It stresses them out. So what do you find fun about creating emails and email marketing in general?
I love it because despite what you might think, it's actually a lot faster, especially like us podcasters. It's a lot faster than ever writing a blog post. But really, like if you think about it, when you're inviting somebody into your email list, one of my biggest things that I make all my students say and all the listeners say is that being on your email list is a privilege. The reason why your people are scared is because every Billy Brohema lady boss out there is telling them like, grow your list, grow your list, grow your list. They send an email, they see unsubscribes and they freak out. And they're like, I'm ruining my business. There is no money in your list size. The money is in the relationship with your subscribers. And if you actually set it up by attracting the best listeners, the ones that are action takers, the one that want to know more about that thing that just lights you up, of course you're going to want to talk to them. We just talk about it really does start with having a freebie that answers a yeah, but. We call it the Sir Mix-a-Lot principle. So just like, Sir Mix-a-Lot likes big butts, so does your email list, so does your subscribers. Because if people are thinking like, I should really be more productive, but then that's it. There's no problem. But if they're like, I really wish I was more productive, but like, I've tried doing this before and it never works, or but I have ADHD, or but in 2 weeks it doesn't work. So if you have a freebie that's literally like the tagline is like how to stay productive, even if you got ADHD, then all of a sudden these people are going to flock to your list. And they'll be like, oh, this is like the best thing ever. And now you get to talk about like productivity with the people that you like. And you're just like, oh, this is the best. And so it really does start with that energetic component of only letting the people on that you're most excited about to serve, realizing that the energy, the enthusiasm, like they're lucky that they get to be in your space. And then all of a sudden the pressure is gone. Cause it's like, wait, like I just get to talk to my other friends who are just as nerdy about morning routines as I am. Cause like y'all know in real life, like half your friends don't care about these things, but now you've got all of these friends that care about these things. And you can share with them like this tip that you have, or this process that you took a one-on-one client through, or something that you guys said on your podcast, or even fails that you've had. Like maybe you're really big on Sunday routines and you skipped it this week. And so you're just relating to your email list of like, you know what? I didn't do it this Sunday and that's okay. And like admitting that mistake and then asking them like, has there ever been something where you've fallen off the horse and you got back on? Reply and let me know. And now it's like, she's a person too, or he's a person too.
This is so good because I feel like, and you have to tell me if anybody's told you this before, but I feel like what you're doing is you're bringing the humanity into email marketing. That's really what it feels like because like you just said, this podcast is so much centered around I share my mistakes, I share my failures, and I do all of these things because I want y'all to know, y'all, I am not perfect. I am so far from perfect. And I think that you do have a better connection. And I was trying to remember it. You had a mic drop moment just a second ago. And it does not matter the size of your email list. It's how engaged they are with you, right? Is that what you said? I was like, I need to write this down. Like,
yeah, there's no money in the list. The money is in the relationship with your list. And the only way that you can mess that up is by not talking to them.
Yeah.
That's it. You can't like, oh, what if I send the wrong email message? You're not sending it is the wrong one.
That's so good. So good. And I know that people listening right now are like, yeah, but Kate, so there's all these questions. So I know them so well. So you're welcome, listeners. I'm going to go ahead and ask the questions that you're thinking right now, because if someone is dragging their feet, they're like, I've been meaning to do this. It's been on my list, but I keep knocking it down to the bottom every single time I see it. Like another quarter of the year will come around and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do my email list. But then a launch comes up and it's more important. And then this comes up and it's more important. And it keeps getting buried down to the bottom. So is there something psychologically or mentally mindset going on with people that do you think it really just comes down to they're scared that they're going to get a bunch of unsubscribes?
Usually, or they let a whole bunch of randos on their list. And like I said, so our biggest thing is we treat people like people and being on your list is a privilege. So if you have a productivity planner, but you also have like meal planning tips, and this is not where lifestyle bloggers tend to have this, and you also have like fashion finds, or even sometimes if you're in like the online business space, like you talk about podcasting, but you also talk about outsourcing, but you also talk about this. Sometimes when you have too many topics and too many verticals, that's when people are like, well, I just don't know what to send my list, because your list is a mixed bag. So you want to make sure that if you do want to talk about other things, because you don't have to be a one-trick pony, then you want to make sure in the welcome series, or if you're going to do a funnel towards a paid product, that you have a little bridge series. It's like, hey, so I know that we have talked a lot about email marketing, but the truth is that's just one facet of being able to build a business that you're proud of. And since it's my goal to put money in the hands of good people, I'm also going to help you if, you hate organization and your socks never match. I'm going to tell you about some productivity tips that I use with Trello and this and that. So people know what to expect. So then it sort of alleviates that. And you had said about a launch, it's like, there's no better time than to continue to email your list before the launch and after launch. Oh, like, what emails do I need to send? And people psych themselves out because they want to be too strategic. I love that Will Ferrell from Saturday Night Live where he talks about strategery when he was George W. Bush. Like, you don't need to do strategery, y'all. Like, showing up is it. So that way, all of a sudden, if you're asking for $9.97, $47, it's just not coming out of nowhere. So something is better than nothing. Make sure that the emails that you're sending up to it, if you're that far in advance, are at least about the topic of your product. Like that's all we're asking for. And then afterwards, it's like, if you know that you tend to crash after a launch, then you need to make sure in your pre-launch that you've gotten even like 2 emails. So that way they'll at least hear from you twice a month after, and then you can come back after.
Oh, this is so good. And I love the theory of, something is better than nothing, because I think that people just get so caught up in the strategery. I love that. I'm totally going to say that from now on, because
they get too strategery and then they send nothing.
Yeah. They're just like, okay, I need to do this. And it has this many words and it has to have this GIF just in this right spot. And it's got to have pictures and it's got to do all these things. But it like they stress me out when they tell me about their strategy, because, and I've kind of talked a little bit about my own strategy, and I'm going to ask you questions about yours with your email list. But one of the things that I do, and people, I've talked about this and they look at me like I'm insane, but I don't care. It's what I do. I handwrite my emails in a journal. because I'm a journaler. This is
Mhm.
something that just comes natural to me. So I will handwrite my emails every Friday morning before I write them out. And most of the time, it's not just about podcasting. It's about
Mm.
dealing with a problem with one of my kids, or the fact that my cat is driving me insane and we're threatening to take him back to the farm because it's just, I don't know if it's working out. So I'll talk about all these things. And
Mhm.
then at the very bottom, I'll mention what's going on, some content that I publish, but it's not always about the thing that is driving the needle in my business. First and foremost, it's about that humanity and the connection of, hey, I'm just a mom, I'm a business owner, and I'm here to be in your inbox every Friday. So I want to hear about your strategy. How often do you email your list? What are some of the things that you talk about? Tell us all the things.
Sure. So we've got some welcome series and we have some funnels. So the difference between the two, because I realize sometimes you use them interchangeably, a welcome series is a little bit more casual, where it's like you might be letting them know about like some smaller priced offers that you had. You might be pointing them towards a really juicy podcast episode that you have. You might want another email, get them to follow you on Instagram. It's a bit more like casual sort of a sell. Whereas a funnel, it's like, a webinar, or it's a freebie that's directly related to usually a bigger offer, where instead of somebody just knowing and liking you, which is always a plus, in a funnel, you need to think of all of the yeah buts, especially like the psychological ones, because people always forget those, that would prevent them from, one, seeing success with your topic in general. They might be like, podcasting is stupid. So you need to like do a little bit of convincing, right? If you've had that yeah but freebie, chances are you're not going to have to do that much. But they're like, but it's too hard to break into, but I can't get guests, but it's too technical. But what if I say too much? What if my friends and family find it and they don't support me? And when you start looking at like those, and then it's like, oh, and look, we've got this membership society and it's going to do this and it's going to help you when that doesn't go well. And then it's like, oh my goodness, like, how does she know? Because she knows you. So we have those. Our welcome series do actually connect to our funnels as well, though you can just get right to the funnels, especially for auto webinars. We've got those up. But we email once a week, always. We usually do Fridays. We have been starting to test out doing Tuesdays and Fridays, because why not? And that's what I always tell my students. I am one that I like to write ours in real time, because that's just the way that my brain works. I have some students that I say email marketing is you just need to know yourself. And they're like, I know, I'll never do it. So they will have like the world's longest welcome series ever. So that way if their welcome series is like 10, 15 emails, they know that if they spend a week just banging those all out and then space them out, then they've got that leeway. So, but I really like to stay like up to date and in real time. And I do the same thing that you do. I always just sort of ask myself, like, what's in my heart? And what goal and what action do I want people to take? And most importantly, how do I want them to feel? So like we literally just launched a YouTube channel, and strategery was on my brain because I was talking about how I was literally psyching myself up for this YouTube channel. Cause like, oh, it's gotta be like this, and it's gotta like parallel with these launches. And like, what if people like, judge the quality of my videos, and like, I'm not like the skinniest lady on earth. So it's like, oh my goodness, like what if they like call it like my chubby face or my lack of makeup? And you know what I mean? Like all of those things. And so like I was talking about that, and I asked them the same question, like, what are you over strategizing? Like sometimes you just need to do it. And so you can really sort of get people behind it. So did I mention the YouTube video? Yeah. Did we get a lot of views? Yeah. Did we get a lot of comments? Yeah. So you can do a lot of bit of both. So I always try to think either what's going on in my life. Sometimes I'll go look at something called like holiday insights to see what weird holiday it is. And then my favorite line ever is, which got me thinking about, or like your cat, right? You want to send it back to the farm. You're trying it. You're nurturing. You're doing everything, which got you thinking about how with the podcast, you've been trying everything to grow it. You were keywording it. You're going on other people's shows. It's a great content. You're on Instagram, but it's just not working out. And then like, you've got a podcast episode that can help with this, or you have a product that's going to help with that. So that's the way that we handle it.
Oh, you're so good on your feet. Look, you just wrote an email for me. Thank you very much. That's going to be what I'm going to write about this week. That's right? So good.
And like, one of the emails, we have a product called the Email Marketing Fairy. And it's a whole bunch of template sets, welcome series. You haven't emailed them in forever, funnels, all that funness. And so it was a couple of years ago, and I had locked my keys in my car. It was in the trunk. And I turned locking my keys in the car in the trunk into like $10,000 worth of sales of this little product.
Oh my gosh.
It was
I
just like
love
talking
it.
about how, I locked my keys in the trunk because I didn't want my iced coffee to fall over. But like, I forgot the most important thing to turn the engine. And it's like kind of like how people get so excited about like, and Instagram Reels wasn't a thing at the time, but how they get so excited about like social media and all these other stuffs. And then they forget the real key that turns their engine, their relationship with their email subscribers. And it's like, and if you are struggling with what to actually tell your people, here are these template sets. It's going to do this, this, and this for you. Now go out and email your list. Like that was literally the call to action, was for them just to email their list. It wasn't even necessarily to buy the product, but it was one of my favorite stories. Like a way to turn embarrassing moments.
I love it. No, I do the same thing. And it's so funny. You'll have to tell me. I feel like you have a Google Doc or a Trello board somewhere that has really interesting ideas of like, oh, this happened. I got to turn this into an email. Do you find yourself doing that?
I tell my students to do that because like I can always find something to talk about, but that's just my nature. I tell them to keep like a 1-sentence like journal, especially if they can't. So it's just like one a day, just like something that happened. And what I really encourage the students to do of our course, Love Your List, like our signature one, I'll have them do an exercise where I'll make them look at their desk and they have to pick any object on the desk and make it relate back to what they talk about.
I love this so much.
It's going to build your creativity muscle, especially if you consider yourself a little bit more quiet or not as boisterous. You would never talk about liking big butts in your stuff. You don't have to be, because there are plenty of people in the world that do not like the way that I teach. They do not like the way that I talk. They don't like my fun, demure attitude, which is fine because I don't care, because my mission is to put money in the hands of good people. So like I could tell you like 3 other people who talk about email marketing who are very cut, dry, boring. They're knowledgeable, but like, if that's your style, then go to them. I don't care. Get out.
Yeah.
Like, cause I need people, regardless if it's from me or not, to go out there and make money.
This is so good. Oh my gosh. This is the message that everybody needs to hear today, because I know that everything that you said relates to podcasting and having an online business and trying to talk to everybody. So many of my listeners are starved for, well, I'm creating this podcast, I'm creating this business to serve everyone in the world. And I'm like, oh dear, sweet baby Jesus, it's just probably not going to work that way. So I love that you're breaking it down to, who are you serving? And just focus on them. Your people will get it. Your people will understand the obscure stories that you tell about whatever it is. Okay, I have one that's really top of mind, and I had to tell my husband about this. And I have not written this email. As of us recording this, I haven't written this email yet, but it's happening. I saw someone driving a Rolls Royce. We live in Houston, Texas, and we don't live in like a super affluent neighborhood or anything. I'm like, I didn't even know that the Rolls Royce had an SUV, and I've never even seen anything in person. And she's shoving her face with McDonald's French fries while she's driving down the road. She's trying to merge, get on the highway, and she's driving a Rolls Royce. And I was like, I've always heard of these cars. So I had to look it up. I was like, how much do these cars cost? These cars cost more than my house. And here she is. She's like, she's shoving her face with McDonald's French fries. And then I thought, oh, the parallels of loving luxury, but also having those guilty pleasures. So yeah, I think after this, I'm going to have to go write it. But I find obscure things like that all the time, and I have to capture them and write them down. So all that to be said, I know that Trello is a tool that you like, and you mentioned you're thinking about switching to ClickUp. So tell us how you would use these.
My OBM wants us to switch to ClickUp. I do not. I'm going clicking and screaming.
Yeah.
I love Trello. I still use it for some of my own stuff, to be honest with you.
I'm never going to break up with Trello.
No. I think that is perfect, especially for solo entrepreneurs, or maybe if you have one team. We're dealing with a lot of contractors right now. And so it was a little bit hard for like all the contractors to like get stuff and things of that nature, though. I think that some really great things are coming to Trello, but I was like, all right, fine. But then everything that's like me involved is all set up in boards. And what you were talking about with the podcast about, I'm going to help everybody. One of the exercises that I always tell the students of Love Your List to do, we call it the Muses exercises. And it's like, okay, even like as simple as you are starting an office on Main Street and say that you want to help people with fitness. You've got, and I always pose an example, like you got a 55-year-old overweight man that just had a heart attack and he needs to get in shape. You have a mom that just had a baby and needs to lose postpartum. You have a 35-year-old that wants to train for a marathon, or you have an overweight teenager that's getting picked on in school, which one of these lighted your fire? Because all of them want help with fitness. Maybe all of them want to do running. Maybe all of them are even down to keto. But like, what one of those lights your fire? And you're going to find that when you just have that person in mind, yeah, those other people might like sink in, but it's always like, oh, I'm talking to this person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
And that's
is
like just
so
what makes
good.
them different. Same thing with, in our personal space, like there's a big difference between what I would consider a podcaster, a blogger, not just like writing wise, and like a course creator or like someone that would consider themselves an online entrepreneur. An online entrepreneur is usually looking at ads, conversion rates, like they're really looking at that. Whereas a blogger is looking towards like traffic and ads. And then this other stuff is supplementary. So while they might seem like they're the same, they're different. Or like, I know you get all the time, like, I want to help female business owners. There's a big difference between somebody growing an MLM, somebody running a drop shipping site, somebody who's selling courses, somebody who wants to monetize their food blog with ads. Like, just narrow it a little bit, guys.
Just keep going down. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I couldn't agree more because I still get this all the time where people say, oh, I want to reach female entrepreneurs. And you're like, okay, let's shrink it down. They're like, okay, female entrepreneurs that want to do this. And it's still something super obscure that I'm just like, oh, you're missing
Making a living doing what they
it.
love.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And they can do this and I'm like, it's still not like you said earlier, you mentioned you're an Enneagram 2. Like, are you trying to reach more people that are just like you and can understand the mindset of, what did you say? It's a people pleaser. Yeah. So it's like, understand like that component of like what that feels like and, working through relationships, professional and personal, like all those things. People are saying, yeah, but it's too narrow. That's too niche. I can't do this. And I'm like, no, that is how you really connect with your people and how this is really fun. I'm glad this is a perfect segue because I want to know, what does it feel like when someone responds to your emails? You write something, you're so proud of it. What feeling do you get when you see that you get a response, like has someone hit reply to one of your emails?
I still think it's super fun. So I have been banned from my inbox as part of clockworking, but I do still go in and we have like a special tab that I'm allowed to look at. That's it. I have to put blinders on. And I love interacting with my people. And I just think that it's so fun. And it can be like, you're going to find this, guys. You might spend like, say like an hour. And I know that seems like astronomical, but maybe you spend like an hour slaving over this email and no one responds, but then you threw one together in 15 minutes. But it was just so relatable that like people are replying back. And go figure, when you ask them to reply back, that they will. And so it's so nice. And I think that it can show you, not only what your audience is struggling with and sometimes the words that they use, but it can also let you know a little bit about like, if they're like, oh, I'm so glad that I found you. Or like, how did I not know this existed before? Because then that lights a fire. Like, I need to go find more people.
Yeah.
What have I been doing? And that was one of the biggest thing with our business is be like, oh, I'm just so lucky that we found you. And, I always pride myself on, we had a relatively small community and our conversion rates were just astronomical. I'm like, and so I was like, oh, like I wanted to be able to prove to people, like, you don't need this giant list to be able to make it work. But I'm like, in doing that, it's like, how many more people are we not helping? Because I just wanted to be prideful. Again, it all comes down to feelings. Nobody else believes me. Like it all always comes down to feelings.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love that you share, so much about how you are so engaged with your list, like so connected with them. But I do you remember the first time you sent an email and you got a response though? Because I know that this is something that is like a legitimate thing that people are like, I'm going to send stuff and I'm going to hear crickets. So instead of talking about that, because that has happened to me millions of times at this point, what do you remember what it was like when you did first get that email response to something you sent out?
I can't because it's been forever. But I can tell you that it was most likely at the time, because of the human nature, if they were replying back, it's like, oh my goodness, is this like somebody being mean?
Oh, yeah.
As opposed to, are they saying something nice? And so that was because I'm thinking back to like 2017, 2018 when I started doing it. And like my mindset was just in like such a rough spot back then where it's like that would have been my default. But then when you go ahead and like, you actually get the nerve to open it up and like, oh my goodness, like, thank you. Like, this was so useful. You're like, oh, like, this is the best thing in the world. Like, I am so excited for all of the results. And just, again, even if it's someone that was just like, you know, I had somebody that replied back yesterday, actually. I'd sent that email about like the YouTube video and the strategy. And she's like, I just wanted to reply back and let you know that I've been putting off forever to propose to somebody about a game development contract. And she's like, I just heard back and we didn't get it. But she's like, I am so proud of myself. And that's the biggest thing that I want my people to feel is proud of themselves. So I'm like, oh, I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited. So I'm just so tickled pink. Like, I love the stuff that my people do. They're just the coolest. The coolest.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for sharing honestly about you were just like scared, a little hesitant, like, are they going to say something mean? As somebody, I know for me, whenever I first started, I had a lot of issues with being very clear on my message. I definitely wasn't serving podcasters. I think I started at the end of 2017, really starting to ramp up my email list efforts. And I just remember thinking, okay, I'm going to send this. No one's going to care. No one's going to respond. And I did. The best thing was, you know, because I still have friends from high school that are on my email list. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like you're a hygienist and like you have no desire to ever create a podcast. But she'll be like, oh my gosh, I remember this story. So I love that I have friends and family on my email list. Shout out. Y'all are amazing and supportive. But I remember the first time I had no idea who they were, and they responded back to me and said, thank you. This was helpful. It was so validating. And I think that that's what a lot of brand new baby entrepreneurs, and that's what a lot of our audience is. Yeah. They're looking for that validation. Yeah. So I love this conversation so much.
It is. And it's just so true. And I think that we all need that dopamine hit. So I'm like, oh, like, you know, I should just do it for the love of the work. Like, no, it's nice to know that people found it useful. And, you know, when you're hitting your email and you're hitting send, whether you're sharing our personal story or a quick tip, because we can get into how emails need to be entertaining in a second. Like when they reply back, it's just like, oh, they took 2 seconds to be like, yeah, like, woohoo.
Yes. Well, okay. I want you to get into emails being entertaining, but first I just thought of, we haven't talked about what tool do you use for your email service provider? Is there a favorite one that you love?
Sure. So I use ActiveCampaign and I tell about 98% of people do not use it because it is very user friendly. And honestly, up until last year, and I think it was like December, they didn't even have landing pages. So I ended up with ActiveCampaign because this was before ConvertKit was a thing. So that's why I didn't get ConvertKit. And then I had gotten a plugin for my course and membership site, which I no longer use, that like it was either Infusionsoft, which was super expensive, Entreport, which was super expensive at the time, or ActiveCampaign. I'm like, ActiveCampaign is so cheap. So like we just stayed over there. And again, one of the reasons why we're clockworking our business is so we can go there. But 9 times out of 10, I tell people if they want to make money, especially with like digital products and being a personal brand, just go with ConvertKit. I know that sometimes the $30 a month or a little bit more can seem like a lot to swallow, but it's so much more user friendly. Their landing pages are really nice. Their opt-in forms are gorgeous. Everything from ActiveCampaign hit us. So like we had to get lead pages. So then it's like when you add up like those expenses, it's like, wait a minute, like it would have just been way cheaper to go over there. So for most people, it's that. Another one that I really, really want to love, and I think that maybe potentially down the road it could be, is something like Flowdesk, because they do have really pretty emails. I was worried about their deliverability, but my issue was, especially at the time that I was looking around with them, you could not add things like timers. So say if you were running a flash sale, you can't add the code in there because they didn't want you messing with a template. And I don't know about you, but like time zones is a big issue for us.
Yeah.
Like that's why I have timers. Like, yes, it creates some urgency. Yes, it gives people deadlines. But honestly, it's so that no one's like, okay, she said 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm in Australian time. So technically it's like 12 p.m. my time. Then like a timer, when it's 0, it's 0. So you couldn't be able to do that. And it had a harder time tagging buyers. And again, my people are digital course creators, product developers. So they need to have that capability. So I feel like they're working on it with Zapier because at one point you couldn't tag buyers, but I'm just like, just go with ConvertKit. It was built for this sort of a thing. Just go with it.
Yeah. And I've been with ConvertKit well before they had the free one that was
Yeah.
like, I think it's 1,000 or something for the free version now. And
Yeah,
I'm
it's
like,
1,000, but you can't set up autoresponders. They'll allow you to
okay.
set up on the free plan. Cause like I said, that's what I tell my students. They'll allow you to do like the delivery of your freebie, like that first one. But then after that on the free plan, they won't let you send any
Okay.
like welcome series or any of that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Cause I was like, I had 14 days to try them out. I mean, don't get me wrong. They hooked me in, but I'm like, where was this free version a few years ago? Come on, guys. But it's awesome. Yeah. I love ConvertKit.
And you get, I'm pretty sure in the free version, you still get customer support. And so that was one of the biggest reasons
Oh,
why I told everybody don't go with MailChimp. It wasn't because I'm like, oh, MailChimp is the worst. They did have an issue with like double subscribers and different lists and all that. But I'm like, you get no customer support. And when you are on a free plan, you're usually brand new. You usually don't know much about tech and you got a lot of questions. So I always
yeah.
pushed everybody towards MailerLite because even on their free plan, you'd get customer service. But then some people are so new, MailerLite wouldn't approve them to send. Because they want
Gosh.
to make
Yeah.
sure, even though they have a free plan, that their sendability score, deliverability score is still high. So it's like one of those sort of catch-22s. But usually if you've got a little something going, you can show them that you've got your podcast, you've got a couple episodes, you've got your website up and going, then usually they'll say yes. But I'm not going to dump you off with no customer support, guys.
Yes. And I feel like ConvertKit's gotten even better over the last few years with their community and their demonstrations and
Love
the
it.
support documents, where even if you can't actually talk to another person immediately, like
Mm.
their tutorials, their blog posts, they just keep coming out with new iterations. And that's like why I just stick with them, because they just keep making it better. Like
Yeah.
they're trying to keep up with the times for sure.
They really are. And I feel like other ones like the MailChimps aren't. And I know I love their how you can still switch between what I call like the simple like ConvertKit, where it's like just like a sequence, but then like you can also go into like the visual funnels. So then you can have those
Yes.
things. Again, I always sell for ActiveCampaign. I'm like, you need to pay for a landing page software. So you need to not be afraid of integrations, and you need to like math, because of where it shines is like if then statements and if else, and like it's all disjointed. But I'm like, just sign up for a couple of them. They all have free trials, nicest customer
Yeah.
service, easier interface for you, and just go with that. Because I would much rather spend $30 a month than say, I'm pretty sure ActiveCampaign's at the same point now anyways for their lowest plan. But it's like, I know I'm taken care of and I know I can do it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We could nerd out on all these things forever, because I love talking about the funnels and the different like automations and tags and all the things. But I want to go back to what you were talking about, because you were saying, okay, we're going to talk about entertaining emails in a second, because I want to go back to the basics, because there's still people listening that are like, okay, guys, like you're inching me a little bit closer. Maybe I'll write my email this week. Maybe not. Like they're still on this fence of like, I'm almost there. They're almost ready to do it. But share with us about entertaining emails and what you were talking about.
Okay. So again, our philosophy, both of our philosophies, is to treat people like people. Why do people go to their inbox? Because they're supposed to be doing something else. Like in our cases, they're supposed to be writing their show notes. They're supposed to be writing a sales page. They're supposed to be pitching that big old guest that they want to land. They're supposed to be pitching other podcasts, and they are procrastinating. So when they go and they click open that tab to Gmail, they're looking for that little dopamine hit. So where a lot of content creators in particular get really hung up is they try to just info slap the heck out of their audience. And no one is going into email with that frame of mind. I always like to share this story. It's my coolest prank ever. I was in high school and my boyfriend at the time, like his hand was out because he was eating some M&Ms, and y'all see where this is going. I had a Skittle, and so I shoved one of my 11 Skittles in his hand, and he wasn't paying attention because, it was yellow and he had yellow M&Ms. Throws it in his mouth. Like you would have thought like I like murdered him. Like he would like, because your brain needs to anticipate things. So if you're trying to like put something like a square peg in a round hole, like, this isn't going to work, because in their mind, they're like, oh, I just need a quick escape. Right. So for like, okay, Kate, well, like, what do I send? Because I don't want to be that person that's like useless, or I just don't want to sell. Give them a quick tip and then say, and if you want 4 more steps, go ahead and listen to our episode today. Because when someone's coming to a podcast, when they're coming to a blog post, even when they're coming to a YouTube video, they are in that learning frame of mind. They're not coming to their inbox to sit down and read an encyclopedia or get 8 million tips about stuff. They're coming to be a little bit entertained, feel like they're understood. So you can have a fun fact. You can relate to something that happened in your day. You can share a stat about your industry. And I think that some people are like, but I'm just like so boring. It's like, did you know that like 75% of people who buy self-help, I'm making this up, who buy self-help books are female, but yet only 10% of them are actually written by females. And then it's like, oh, I didn't know that. You know what I mean? And so now they go tell their friends. Now you go and you talk about what you're going to talk about on your podcast. And then you can just send them on their way.
Oh my gosh. I love the psychology that you just baked into all of that because it's so good. And I've never really thought about email marketing that way, but that is when I go to check my email, that's what I'm looking for. I'm like, oh, did someone email me a great guest suggestion? Did someone, send me something cool? Someone, send me a question about something. And whenever I see an email that I'm excited to open, I kind of take like a mental note of, why am I excited to open this? Mm-hmm. So I think that this would be a great exercise for anybody that's listening. Like, ask yourself, what gets you excited to open your emails, and how can you use that to kind of play into your own email writing? Oh my gosh, this is so good.
It's just like, oh, all right. Because there's those people, and I love that suggestion of like really studying yourself as a person, because your subscribers are people too. Again, for most times, there are some people when they email, like, and I'm on their newsletter list, I don't even look at their subject line because I know who they are. They've either proven to me, whether on their podcast, in like, say, their welcome series or those first couple of emails, they get me. Again, they can be relatable. It's usually always bite-sized stuff. I'll just open it. Like, I don't care. And then there's other people that their subject line has to do a little bit more of the heavy lifting for them.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And we didn't even get into subject lines. Kate, I'm going to have you back on the podcast for us to talk about like breaking everything down, because we could just talk about all this forever. This is so much fun. But I want to move into another segment of the podcast where we have some rapid fire questions. So are you up for that?
Sounds good.
Okay. So the very first one, and we haven't even got into your podcast. So hang on, hold up. Let's back up, like reverse. Tell us about your podcast. What is the name of it and who is it for?
Sure. So it is Inbox Besties, and it is for, I would say, smallish business owners to help them sort of carve out their section of the internet and have people like ridiculously excited to throw their credit cards at them. So we do talk a lot about email marketing. We talk a lot about sales psychology. We talk a lot about copywriting, but we're also, that's one facet of the business. But like, if you're so frazzled that like you're not getting things done. So we're bringing in a little bit more about the mindset. We're bringing in a little bit more about like the productivity and like what it means to actually run I call us course creators and digital product creator style of a business. So I love Inbox Besties. It's the coolest. And we're bringing in a lot more guests to talk about areas that I'm not an expert in. So that's Inbox Besties. Wherever you guys are listening to this, you can search for it. You can search my name too, and it'll show up because I put my name in the title too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So as soon as y'all are done, you have to wait. You have to listen to the rest of this conversation first, and then you're going to go over to Inbox Besties and listen to that. Because if you enjoy, I can't wait to go back and listen to some of your episodes, because this has just been so much fun. And I love the way that your approach to everything is just so relatable. It's so much fun. So I can't wait. Okay. So now the reason why I wanted to tee that up is to really talk about, you have your own podcast. So my first rapid fire question is, what piece of advice would you give to a brand new podcaster?
I would say be a guest on other people's shows. And even if you plan on doing a lot of solo episodes, have some guests on as well, because that's the fastest way to get your podcast to grow.
Oh, that's good. That's a really good one. Okay. The next question I have is a 2-part question, and it is, what is the dream podcast you would love to be on, and who would be your dream podcast guest?
I really like, and now I'm like, oh, I don't want to mess it up. The name, I love the Get Paid podcast by Claire. I think that Claire Pelletreau, I want to make sure I said her name right. I always find that one really interesting, because at the stage of business that I'm in right now, I don't really need any more tips and tricks. I just want to know what's going on underneath the hood of a business. Like, it's more of an intrigue. So I'd say the Get Paid podcast. And I don't think that we really have a dream guest. I know that sounds so odd, but I just like to have interesting people. That's really it. Interesting people that can help my audience with things that I don't normally talk about. I guess maybe
Awesome.
Adrienne Dorson, because she's the head of Run Like Clockwork. So we'll say Adrienne.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. And the last question I have for you is, do you consider yourself a perfectionist?
I used to, but not anymore.
Not anymore. Oh my
Not
gosh.
anymore.
I feel like the term that I have used for myself is I'm a recovering perfectionist because it's just, and it's funny because that's why I find a lot of our guests, they'll say, I used to be, or
Mhm.
I'm in the recovering stages. So you are absolutely amongst good people here, good friends. But I know that you have a template for everybody that's listening that is struggling with their email marketing journey. So
Mhm.
can you tell us about that today?
Sure. So if you guys head on over to katedoster.com/TPP, and there'll be a link in the show notes, you can get my 2 years worth of newsletter ideas. So I break it down month by month, like in June, here's what you're going to send week 1, week 2, week 3. We even have a little calendar in case you want to change the dates around. If it's anything that's time specific, like, oh, it's National Library, week this week, like we'll let you know, there'll be a little timestamp. And if people are like, oh, but like it's August by the time I'm finding this, turns out January through July come back again. So you will be absolutely fine. And it's just these really quick sentence starters. So that way it's just like, oh, share 3 mistakes. Oh, it's National Teacher Day. How can I relate it to this? Share your favorite book. So it just gives you those ideas. Sometimes you're going to use that sentence starter to get people to your podcast episode. Sometimes it's a hiatus and you just need like a quick, like, hey, what's going on with your fitness, kids, whatever the main topic is that you talk about. And they'll be good to go. So it's katedoster.com/TPP to get your hands on that. So you don't have to worry about what to send your list till 2023.
I was going to say it's 2 years. It's not just like, oh, here's like a month's worth. It's 2 years. Are you kidding me?
And
That's
it's not
fantastic.
just like a list of like, oh, like here's 104 ideas. Because again, treat people like people. They'll skip around. They won't know. And again, some people do. They're like, I liked the topics better in April and it is September. Like that's fine. But again, if I'm giving you if I'm actually contracting what you can talk about, you'll find that you get more creative.
Okay, so y'all have to go grab this. We're going to have links in the show notes to where you can connect with Kate. And actually, I talked about, I told you earlier, I'm like, I went down a rabbit hole of watching your reels and all the tips that you share. Is Instagram where you like to hang out? And if so, tell everybody your handle so they can come follow you.
Sure. So I have been having a lot of fun, and that's what I've been trying to really incorporate. Year 2021 is about exponential growth and fun. What feels fun? How can I have fun? Taking the pressure off of everything. And so Instagram Reels has just been my jam. So we'll share things like things you didn't know you could do with Trello, quick tips for emails. I always love the ones that are just like about being an online entrepreneur. Like the one we just put up was like, tag your friend if your best friend you talk to every day you've never met in real life, was essentially what we're getting at, because it's the truth. I'm like, I've never met her in real life. Like we've never hugged, we've never touched, but we talk every single day. And my handle is Kate_Doster. So that's where you can find us there.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, Kate, this was so fun. You're going to have to come back on the show and we're going to have to talk about even more like nerdy things about marketing and emails because this is so much fun. But thank you so much for coming on the show today.
I am so excited. And just email your list, guys. Just do it. Again, they're going to be the most engaged because think about it. You might follow like 500 people on Instagram, but you are not signed up to 500 people's email list. So just give them the opportunity, your subscribers, to get to know you and for you to help them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kate.
Bye.
So what did you think? Oh, I loved it. I told Kate after we were done, like we hit stop and I told her we could have kept going. We could have gone forever and ever because she was so much fun to talk to. I always love talking to someone who does something related to podcasting and what they do, right? She does email marketing, but she also has a podcast. So she's also in the trenches with podcasting. So she knows how podcasters think. But she also has a specialty of email marketing, and she just brings so much to the table. I loved hearing her different perspectives, and I hope that you go grab her freebie. So it's going to be in the show notes, krystalprofit.com/episode 260. I'm going to have all the ways that you can connect with Kate. Go listen to her podcast, Inbox Besties Podcast. Go check it out. It's so good. It's so good. I love Kate's personality, and I know that you got so much value out of just hearing about email marketing. So tell me if you enjoyed this episode. Take a screenshot where you're listening, tag me, tag Kate on Instagram. We would love to hear what your number one takeaway was from today's episode. But that's all I have for you today. So again, the show notes, krystalprofit.com, episode 260 for all the show notes, and Kate's freebie for 2 years worth of newsletter ideas. Please go. If this is what you're struggling with, go grab it. You need this. I wish I would have had this whenever I first started writing my weekly emails. So I am so happy to bring to you incredible guests, and I can't wait to see what everyone does with their emails. Like, it just gets me. This is where the geeky side of me comes out, because podcast marketing is just so much fun. And I'm telling you, everything really changed in my business once I got really intentional with my emails. So that's what I will leave you with here today. If you are brand new around here, I would love it if you would follow the podcast wherever you are listening. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners, thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Krystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Krystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.